Morning. Welcome back. Oh, hang on, you're still muted.
Cool. Thank you.
There you are. Hello.
I,
Happy
I
New Year to you. Haven't seen
happy
you.
yes to you. I have a technical question about you. Can you maybe hear me better than usual?
A little better than usual.
Hmm.
It's new headphones, isn't it?
Yeah, I was hoping for better, either better, but let's see. Maybe this one.
Two and one. And dream. Lovely. People are slowly coming in, except for the person presenting today. It's always the fun bit in the beginning. It's like, are they going to show up? Don't know why, because so far everyone always showed up. But something about waiting. Do you know when you're presenting next?
Sorry.
Do you know when you're presenting next already?
Should be about March, if I remember correctly. Let me retrieve the schedule.
Plenty of time.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe about Neuroccino. I have to think about it.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Happy New
So
Year.
nice
Good
to
to
see
see
you
New
all. Happy
Year. I
New Year.
know. I missed this crowd.
Okay, I'll stop accepting people and let you do it.
Yeah, I made you co-host.
Okay. I'm
Hey,
sharing with
Chris.
you guys on the chat the link to the paper because it's open access. So you can follow the discussion from there.
Way to go.
There you go.
Thank you. We're just running the statistics on Neuroccino from last year. There's a slight bias towards nature.
Oh no, really?
It's not an issue. We just we looked at all the stats and it's quite interesting. Also because our presenters are actually perfectly gender balanced,
Oh, cool.
except that women present twice as much.
Oh, all right.
Right. It's calming down now. Hi, Evie.
Hello, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Uh, yeah, Marcella, I saw your text and I did it already. Thanks for the reminder. Right, let's get cracking. Welcome to Neuroccino, the first one in 2024. We meet every Monday morning, 9:30 Central European Time. And the topic is chosen by the presenter, so I don't actually know what we're talking about today. Haven't clicked on the link yet. And today we have Valentina present for us. She's a professor in Italy, running her new group now after spending a lot of time with us. And I'm looking forward to your paper. Take it away.
Thank you. So I'm sharing with you the page. Here we go. So the paper I'm talking about today is Inferring Neural Activity Before Plasticity as a Foundation for Learning Beyond Backpropagation. So I've chosen for this new year a paper on a new framework to think of how the brain works. In particular, here is how learning occurs in the brain. The authors here try to go beyond a framework, a theory that belongs to a neural network that is backpropagation. So basically, to learn the outcome or the output of a neural network process, the neural network is balanced according to the modification of the weights in order to predict in a correct way the outcome. So it's like a backward propagation, meaning that according to the desired outcome of the outcome neurons, all the weights of the synaptic weights, so that weight on the final outcome are modified throughout the whole network. So passing through the hidden layers or the hidden neurons. So the authors here believe that instead of this backward propagation, there is another approach which is a prospective configuration that is more efficient in the learning process. And they start their paper with a nice metaphor. So think of you as a bear that is approaching a river. And while approaching the river, you see the river, and when you hear, when you hear the water and when you smell the smell of fish, you know that in the river, you anticipate that in the river there is food. There are the salmon. But you are a bear that suffer from TBI, so that your hearing is impaired. So when you see the river, you don't hear the water, but you can still smell the fish. So according to backward propagation, let me maybe, okay, you can see better here, right? So according to backward propagation, the link between the auditory neurons and the visual stream is impaired. So they put less weight on the connection between hearing and the visual input. But this comes at the expense of the link between olfactory neurons and the visual stream. So that as a result, also the neurons, the olfactory neurons, will be less weighted, so will impact the less when predicting the outcome. That is, there are salmons in the river. While with prospective configuration, first, the network anticipates what the network will look like after the modification according to reach the expected outcome. So that you see in this figure here, so the circles are the neurons, and the different colors of the circles are the neuronal activation. So the neural activation level that goes from white, so low activation, to black, high activation. And again, this is the auditory neurons, and this is the visual input, and this is the olfactory. So when predicting how the network will have to look like, the neural activation will have to look like to reach the desired outcome, first, so it performs this prediction, and then after it performs the changing in the weights of the connection, so the synaptic weights, so as to the desired network would be with respect the activation of the olfactory neurons and the visual ones, while the stream to the auditory neurons will be less weighted on, so that when the bear sees the river and it doesn't hear the water, it can still smell the fish, and it can still predict that there is fish in the river, so as that it won't die from starving. So the authors claim that this approach here, so prospective configuration, is more efficient than backpropagation. And they assess this, they test this with many, sorry, I lost the page. Many simulations, and in particular, a very nice result here is that they showed that how prospective configuration is actually more efficient to tune on the neural network toward the target compared to backward propagation. In fact, if the neurons start here, when receiving when facing an incorrect output compared to the predicted outcome, and after many iterations that goes from 4 to 16, in order to arrive to the desired target, they show that with backward propagation, the route to the desired target, it actually doesn't follow the desired output, but we have a drop in the performance, and then finally, after more than 16 iteration, it will get to the desired output. While with the other approach that now is, again, the prospective configuration, it will be target-oriented all the way through since iteration number 4 to iteration number 16. So it's more efficient than backward propagation. So this is the base of the new framework that they are trying to explain on how learning the brain works. And then they very nicely apply this new framework that is very theoretical so far to behavioral tasks. And in particular, they start with the sensory motor task. So they refer to a paper published on this sensory motor anticipation of the outcome, and they try to simulate the results of the behavioral results of the paper, both with backward propagation and with prospective configuration. So the task was that participants are asked to move a lever from a position 1 to a position to a final position. This lever movement is conditioned by context setting that could be a screen, a background, a blue background, or a red background. While moving the lever, the participants could experience deviation from their movement. That could be plus deviation, so an over deviation from their movement, or a minus deviation. So the movement, I think, is less like precise, but in like backwards way with respect to their actual movement. And in the training session, the blue context and the plus deviation are trained together, while the red context and the down deviation, so minus, are trained together. And then there are some washout sessions where the context is set without the deviation. While in the testing session here, the context, so the blue or red context and the deviation could happen in reverse. So you can have a blue context with minus deviation and a red context with plus deviation. They provide an example in terms of neural network here in B, where we have the context, blue or red, and then the output, so the feedback, the plus deviation and the minus deviation. According to the authors, participants create a belief. So they introduce this concept, the concept of belief, that is the latent contextual setting. And in this case, the belief is that with the blue context, we will have a plus deviation. While in another belief is that with red context, we will have a minus deviation. And so during the training session, this belief is reinforced, as you can see from the thickness of the arrows. And in the washout session, really nothing really happens because you have the context and then no deviation. So it's not reinforced, but it stays the same. While what happens here is that during the testing station, this belief is challenged. With backpropagation, here on the bottom, there is the weight renegotiation, so the weight putting the weights throughout the entire neural network. It will involve both the context, so the red context, and the deviation. So we will have no learning from this type of context. So the performance will drop because there is a completely, it deviates from what the neural network have been learned from the training. While in prospective configuration, the neural network we will have a latent context that is B, so blue context and plus deviation. And when this case happens, so red context and plus deviation, the neural network will not disregard the plus deviation because it's still part of the context. So we won't have a significant drop of the performance as in backpropagation because the plus, so the deviation, will still taken into account. It will be still expected a little. And they demonstrate this while showing the comparison between the neural network, simulated neural network performance in prospective configuration, backpropagation, and the actual data. As you can see here from the plots, the prospective configuration data actually matches the real data of the paper, while backpropagation doesn't. And in particular, backpropagation failed to predict the accuracy in performance of the participants for the red context plus deviation task. So far, so good. So we've seen sensory motor predictions, but what about like more higher cognitive functions? And the authors also try to predict the changing in the tasks paradigms with a paper on a reward and stimuli associations. So again, they try to recreate the performance of the participants in this task, where they had to choose either a triangle or a circle, and the stimulus choosing choice will reflect in a monetary reward or monetary loss. And the probability of the association reward or loss to the symbol has different probabilities. So maybe there is a more monetary reward with triangles and less monetary reward with rounds. But this probability can be reversed so as that circles could be more rewarding than triangles in some trials. This shifting in probabilities is encoded by the participants as a negative correlation, so that as if they choose triangles and expecting a reward, but this reward doesn't come, they will shift in the next trial to circles, expecting a reward this time. And this is encoded in the middle prefrontal cortex with neural activation. So if after a punishing trial, so a trials where they expecting a reward, but they don't get a reward, after this trial, if they choose to stay, so to stick with the same stimulus, the activity in the prefrontal cortex will drop, meaning that they are not expecting a reward. While if they choose to switch to the other stimulus, the activity in the prefrontal cortex will be higher, meaning that they expect a reward. And when trying to simulate this with prospective configuration and backpropagation, so the activity in the middle prefrontal cortex after switching or staying after punishing trial, the authors found that prospective configuration actually matches the actual data from the authors, from the original paper, rather than backpropagation. So this is a new framework for learning in the brain, how learning happens in the brain. And this is also advantages if we want to so in the approach of the neural network analysis. Now, before getting to questions, I see a lot of I see Chris already ready. But I also see some clinicians between you. And I wonder if you, while listening to the paper I'm presenting, I wonder if you thought of any, especially for the sensory motor part of the paper, if you thought of any association between the propagation and how it could explain some deficits in the brain, like the bear with our brain trauma. And I'm because that make me think of it. So I'm wondering if you also had the same thoughts.
Thanks, Valentina. Great. Not an easy start to the new year, but I love the intro with the TBI bear. That definitely woke me up this morning. There's already questions in the room. Chris is the first one, so I'm just going to give the floor to Chris.
Thank you for presenting the paper. It's really interesting. I will definitely have to read that in more details. But one thing that I was wondering is so the examples in the paper are perturbations on something that the participants have been trained to do. So is this mechanism of prospective configuration only because in that case, if I understood correctly, it was not really learning. It was more like, so yeah, they learn that there can be a perturbation, but it's not learning something new. So I was wondering whether the backpropagation would be working with this prospective configuration when we are actually learning something completely new, when we have to learn a completely new task. Because
Yeah.
initially, I would think that if you don't know anything, if you haven't been trained at all,
Mm.
you wouldn't have a prospective configuration because you don't know anything about the thing. So you would need to use backpropagation to create the new knowledge. No?
Yeah, yeah. I think the authors actually address this point in a figure that I haven't shown. Sorry. Yes, because when they start to learn, so when the neural network actually start to learn something new, like, what was it? But yeah, so basically when the neural network starts to learn something new, the efficiency of backpropagation and prospective configuration is actually comparable. The problem is that when deviation from what you learn occurs, that prospective configuration actually is more efficient because it doesn't have to rebalance all the way throughout the neural network before coming to the desired configuration of activation of the neurons, but it's able to stick with the predicted configuration, and after finding the predicted configuration, then starts to changing the weight, but not independently from the desired configuration. So yes, when they start to learn something, the performance is equiparable. But then when something new happens to the learned trials or the learned behavior, then prospective configuration is more
So
desirable.
what they are showing is that even when you're learning something completely new, the prospective configuration is still
Yes, yeah. If I
allowing
understood
learning.
well, yes,
All right,
yes, yeah.
that's interesting. I wouldn't expect that.
Why would you not expect that?
Because or if I understood correctly, you need to have already a model of what's happening
Mhm.
or what will happen in your brain. So if you're learning something completely new that you don't have any a priori knowledge on it, I'm struggling to see how you could have a prospective configuration on that. But maybe it's because there are so many things, like it can still be connected to things that we know.
Yeah, you're
Um,
not starting from a blank slate, right? You start with already
because
previous knowledge from different kind of settings, so you might be able to
yeah,
just
so maybe it works with the brain because the brain is not a blank slate, as you said.
So
But
you
it
say if
wouldn't
it
work with a
working with an
blank neural
algorithm.
network. Yeah.
Well, what do you mean for blank neural network? Because, for instance, there is the example, like with a neural network, you want to achieve something, right? That you already have in
Yeah, but
reality.
at the beginning, the network has random weights.
before it's
Okay.
trained, it
Yeah.
doesn't know anything. And then you need to train it, which gives it the knowledge.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But
So
then
you
it's
have
not a
knowledge.
naive
Yeah.
network anymore. Do you see?
Yeah.
I think that's where Chris is going. It
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
work a network because it doesn't work the same way the human brain works.
Yeah.
That was the other point I wanted to raise, like how far we can go with this type of comparison. between neural networks and the brain.
That's a
interested
longer
to
debate
test
than
that.
the 3 minutes we have left.
Thank you.
I would argue we hit the wall pretty soon in the comparison, especially when it comes to learning, because the way we learn things and the way neural networks learn things, as we just discussed, is fundamentally different.
Yeah, I mean, this is why I was thinking of a damaged brain, because with sensory motor learning, like it sounded simple, but what if a brain damage happens? How would the network reconfigure? What would be the most efficient approach? And is there between backpropagation and prospective configuration? And I was thinking of this.
Are they hinting at clinical applications at all?
No.
Interesting. Eduardo's been patiently
Sorry,
waiting to
yeah.
ask a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for the presentation. That's really hard stuff to put in your Neuroccino. But very interesting. And before my question, to build up a little bit on what Chris said, that's a good question actually, whether these new models of the backpropagation model are better one compared to the other. But in favor of backpropagation model, one could maybe say that actually this U-shaped curve, it's quite similar to the biological behavioral shapes that we observe often when people try to learn something. So there is a drop in the performance and then regain. So maybe depending on the context and on the kind of learning, one model may be more apt than the other. But besides that, my question was more to better understand this new model, and notably when you talk about the sensory model adaptation task, I cannot really understand what's the point that makes the difference between the propagation and the prospective configuration model. So if I got it right, is it the fact that the backpropagation model cannot build an inferred memory of what happened before the adaptation? And that what makes the difference from the prospective configuration?
Can I share again my screen? Because it's easier if I...
Of course.
Oh, thank you. Okay. All right. So for instance, were you referring to one of the two tasks specifically? Which one?
No, yeah, the figure you were showing just
this one.
Yeah.
Okay. So the way I understood this is that it's like the bear and the water versus water sound versus olfactory route to the fish smell. So basically, here, backpropagation treats the background and the deviation from the movement as the same context. So if one of the two is disrespected, one of the two rules is disrespected, the whole network fails to, so the performance prediction will be lower because one of the two conditions is disrespected, and since it treats them as a whole, then it will predict that the performance will be low. While prospective configuration treats the context setting and the deviation as a whole. However, those are two components of a belief. So it's like there is a whole belief of blue context and plus deviation, but they are not dependent to each other. So like the visual to auditory route and the visual to olfactory route. In backpropagation, those are the same thing. So if there is a shift in the weights for one, those weights will shift also for the other one. Because this is how backpropagation works, shifting the weights independent of the desired configuration. So while in the back perspective configuration, you will have a change in one root, but keeping in mind the ultimate outcome, which is higher performance in the task. So it doesn't change all the weights only because you were expecting a blue context with a plus deviation, but it like adjusts for this change weighting on the other part of the expected outcome, which is the plus deviation. So it is able to actually perform a medium to high accuracy in the performance as it is in the participants, because participants, even though there is this change in the association, so they were expecting blue and plus deviation, they have red and plus deviation, they're still able to perform correctly. I know.
Okay.
I know it's not okay. It's not easy. Maybe it's because also it's hard also for me. It's been hard to understand and also to explain. Sorry.
Yeah, but that clarified it a bit more. So thank you very much.
But yeah, thinking of the analogy of the bear actually helped me a lot. So well done, authors.
It's always nice analogy.
I would love to know how they came up with that one.
I don't know.
Right. I don't see any more questions at the moment, and we're actually out of time for this morning already. Thanks for joining, and exciting to see you all again. See you next week for another Neuroccino, and I believe Michelle is presenting next week. Have an exciting week in science, and see you next Monday. Bye.